Hey everyone, welcome to The Zest, the official podcast for Orange Coast Magazine. I'm Chelsea Ranieri, and today's guest is the Chief Brand Officer for the leading global fashion retailer Revolve. She is the driving force behind the brand's innovative marketing campaigns, including Revolve Around the World, Revolve Festival at Coachella, and more. Thank you so much for being here today, Raissa Gerona.
Hi, thanks, Chelsea. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me and thinking of me for the show.
Of course. I actually, so I first heard your story on Drama's podcast, Short Story Long.
Man, you really did your research.
I did.
Yeah.
I heard it like years ago, and I've been following you ever since. I think that you're so inspiring, and I have so much admiration for all the work that you've done. So I've been really excited to get to talk with you.
Oh my gosh, that really means so much to me. And I appreciate the pre-work that you've done for this interview. But yeah, I'm very excited to just jump into the questions, and please ask anything and everything. I would love to answer as many questions as you have.
Oh, thank you. Well, speaking of, I would love to start at quite literally the very beginning. You were born in the Philippines and you moved to Silver Lake when you were 7. What was that experience like?
It was overwhelming, to be honest. I was born in the Philippines, like you said, and my family and I moved here when I was 7. My dad was already living here for 2 years. So he was able to, kind of help set up as much as he can so that he was prepared before my mom and my sisters and I moved over. But I didn't know so many of the details going into the move, but I just remember coming to the US and just going to the supermarket for the first time and just feeling like a literal whole new world, from the scanners to just, of course, the people, etc. Those things are still with me till this day. And I always think about how, I always think about families and kids, etc., who move here, because it is it's such a big change in someone's lives, especially when you have a family, and you're trying to get settled in a new place and making sure everyone felt comfortable. So, thankfully my parents were just more dialed and just made sure that we were, again, safe, comfortable, and as acclimated to this new place as possible.
Yeah. And where did you go to high school?
So I went to a high school called Holy Family. It's a all-girls Catholic school.
Oh, wow.
In Glendale. So I was raised Catholic. And so my parents, sent me to that school. It's a tiny, tiny, tiny school. There were probably 35, 40 people in my graduating class.
Wow.
So we were all it felt like a sorority because we all knew each other. Everybody in the high school knew each other. But yeah, that's the high school I went to. Wow.
What were you like as a teen?
I was a nightmare. It's so funny. I was not the best kid in terms of listening to my parents, and I gave them a lot of problems. I was, just being a teenager, but I was always very good at trying to get good grades and being studious. Yeah. And so it's funny because it always works out to be, it all shook out to be the same, even though I was a nightmare as a kid. So at least you always got good grades and stayed in school and et cetera, et cetera. But I was a nightmare for sure. I was by far the hardest of my 3. I have 2 other sisters, but I was hands down the hardest of my sisters for sure.
That's so funny. What did you want to do for your career when you were in high school?
So I was very, I thought I was going to be a lawyer. I was,
oh, wow.
Yeah, I was in speech and debate. I was very active in also the student body. I was class president and all these funny things, even though I was a nightmare. And so I was very I was always in speech and debate. So I just always felt I was going to be a lawyer. And
wow.
Yeah. And so when I was applying to go to college, that was, kind of the path that I thought I was going to be on.
Wow. So yeah, you went to UC Irvine and you
did. In Orange County.
Shout out. And you went to school for political science. So was that in hopes to do law?
Yes, I was. Yes, exactly. I was, again, very on this straight path. I thought in my head to be a lawyer, and was, majoring in poli-sci. and, was working really hard for my LSATs, et cetera. And so, it didn't happen. I mean, I actually was going to go to law school and then, pivoted the very last kind of moment, literally before I was supposed to confirm that I was going, because I just didn't feel like I was ready to commit to such a big, it's so expensive to go to law school. And so I just wanted to be extra sure. And, it's probably one of the best kind of decisions that I made in life, because I didn't, I didn't go and not really enjoy it and had like this massive, law school, tuition. So really dodged a bullet for that.
What's so interesting is everyone I've interviewed so far, not like whatever they majored in never ended up being their career path. It's
like,
same with me.
Yeah, I'm sure. What was yours?
I did communication studies. It was just kind of broad, but I did journalism.
Yeah, communication journalism. I feel like that's super close. I mean, it's funny because I work with so many, contracts and deal making and structuring different types of kind of deals, that I think it would have been also helpful to have, a law degree, but there's people like that are better than me. So it all worked out.
Yeah. And while you were at college, you studied abroad in Italy. And then also I read you took a bunch of trips with your friends as well. What did these trips teach you?
Chelsea, I really I just love that you did all this pre-work and we had this really thoughtful conversation together. So I appreciate it.
Of course.
When I studied abroad in Italy, was my first time leaving the country after I had moved.
Oh, wow.
After I moved to America. So it was like, I'd never been to Europe before. I was, 19. And so I was very oh my God, what is this whole different world? And I studied abroad in Tuscany in a tiny town, Siena. And it was just life changing in every way, because I was exposed to a whole different culture. And that's actually why I was like, you know what? Because it was my senior year. I was like, you know what? I don't think I want to be a lawyer, because being there, they have just such a different perspective on life. They have siestas where they have a 4-hour lunch break. I'm like, how is this even life? And then from there, I just started to learn about all these different places I'd never heard of. I mean, Google and the internet, Google, I don't even think really existed back then, but, it was figuring out what the Amalfi Coast was, and what people did during the summer for, they called it holiday versus vacation. It was just so different. And, after school, I just, started traveling basically abroad to Barcelona and Spain and just Europe a lot. And that was really kind of, one of the biggest inspirations for ultimately Revolve Around the World is, the way people lived and traveled. And, I just remember when I went on these vacations after college, I always wanted to look and dress my best. Mm-hmm. And so again, that was kind of the concept of how, I thought that people wanted to see clothes was in the most, natural setting, basically.
Yeah. And speaking of, you started your own brand in 2007, Bridget Catisse.
Yes.
What inspired you to start a brand?
Yeah. So after college and obviously not going to law school, I was, trying to figure out what my next move was, because, I wasn't, basically what I thought I was going to do wasn't what I was doing. So I was like, okay, I have to figure out my life. And so
what were you feeling? Were you nervous? Not
so nervous. Only because my parents were like, we're not financially supporting you. You have to figure out what you're going to do, because you were supposed to be in law school and now you don't want to do it. So, you have to figure this out. And so, I got a job right after to do basically I was a salesperson. And, that was one of the most pivotal kind of jobs or experience in my life, because I was getting paid basically minimum wage. Mm-hmm. And then I would only really make money if I closed, if I made I closed the sale and would make commission.
Oh, okay.
And I think like fundamentally that's really kind of like what it is to be an entrepreneur in a more safe way, right? It's like you need to wake up and like cold call, also, rejection and picking up a phone call or knocking on someone's door and being able to introduce yourself, taking no for an answer, being able to then come back and like hopefully do 30 more calls and get a yes.
Wow.
Being able to present, all of these things. Like I look back now at that job doing sales and learning that if you make a sale, like you can get more money. And so, and that you really ran your own schedule. Like no one is going to like call you to be like, hey, why didn't you go to work today? It's like, if you didn't want to work, you're getting paid like whatever minimum wage was, like $9 or $10 or whatever it was at that time. And so that was, again, made such a big impact on me. Again, like looking back of like, wow, that job was so like, but as I got that job, because I had a lot of time, and again, I didn't really have to go into the office. I was always like very into like vintage and thrift store shopping, thrifting. And so I would basically in between like meetings and phone calls, I would just go to like random like thrift stores. And I started to accumulate so much stuff that I was like, you know what? I'm just going to start selling this stuff on eBay because there's just so much stuff.
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, I started to like rework some of the stuff that I would find, like dresses, and make them like shorter or cut off the sleeves or whatever. And, yeah. And then like would put it up on eBay. And then soon enough, like all that stuff started selling much more than like just like the vintage random things that I found. And so, yeah, in 2007, I decided to basically just start a brand. I don't even know why like that. It was maybe because of like eBay. And I was like, maybe I'll just like start selling stuff and I can start a brand and everything is made from like vintage and it's all one of a kind. And that's basically was the start of Bridget Catisse. I had it for, 2.5 years. And then, quickly realized that it was really hard to run a business. It's really hard to fundraise. I didn't know all the things again I knew now, which I feel like even now, like the young entrepreneurs are way smarter. Like they know how to fundraise, they know how to make these beautiful decks. Like they have like a plethora, it feels like of resources. And yeah. I feel like mine was so limited. I didn't go to business school either. So I didn't even know like what, angel, like I didn't know any of this. I was just like, I'm just going to try to get money to like have a brand. And so anyway, I quickly ran out of money, sadly. But during that time, Revolve decided to carry the brand. And that's really how I was introduced to the company and kind of, the team, et cetera.
Did you reach out to them or did they see your brand and reach out to you?
I think they reached out to me, which was super cool. And again, this was like like Instagram and Facebook and stuff like that. And so, the relationship was, very, organic. And I feel like Revolve in a way is still like that for so many different brands. And I know we were just saying that, you were interviewing somebody, who has a swim brand that's sold on Revolve, and 80% of the brands that we sell on Revolve, we classify as like emerging. So a lot of brands are, either startups or in like the very, very early stages of their the life of the brand. And so I love that till this day, years and years and years later, since I've had Bridget Catisse, that it's still a platform where we can support young, up and coming, emerging designers and brands who are just hardworking and talented and offering something special and new to the consumer.
Wow. 80%. I had no idea. That's a lot.
Yeah. It's incredible. I mean, of course we sell the very big brands like, the Nikes and Levi's of the world. But yeah, majority of them are these smaller brands that you really can't find anywhere else.
Wow. And were you familiar with the brand with Revolve before they reached out?
No, I wasn't. I mean, because at that point, I think they had only been around for like 5-6 years. And yeah, because Revolve started in 2003 maybe 4 years. And I started working with them in 2007, 2008.
Okay.
And, during this time, there wasn't that many people shopping online just yet. I mean, now it's like we laugh because it's like such a big part of like our lives. But yeah, it wasn't, it was still like this new concept of shopping online, especially for clothes, like how do you try on clothes online? Can you return it? Like there's so many different, questions that was being asked. Is this going to be a viable business, et cetera? So yeah, so it's again, it's so funny to think about it now. But they were one of my biggest customers at that time. And so it was just, so serendipitous that that's how we met.
And then you started Lovers and Friends with them?
Yes. And so when I had to close Bridget Catisse because I ran out of funding, Michael Mente, who's one of the founders and owners of Revolve, at that point we had met, a couple of times, and he reached out and was just like, hey, it's unfortunate that you have to close your brand. But, I would love to try to basically do a new brand with you. I'll basically help fund it, but you have to run and kind of do everything because I'm obviously running Revolve. Right. And so it was like a no-brainer, of course. And so that's how Lovers and Friends basically was born. We started it like at the end of 2009, and eventually we launched it in 2010.
And was that the start of Alliance Apparel, or did it like? Okay.
Well, it evolved because we saw such great success with Lovers and Friends that we were like, we should start other brands. And so we did. Then we launched another brand called Tularosa, another brand called NBD. At that point, that's when we formed Alliance Apparel. And there's 4 of us total, Michael being one of them, like helping to run it and design, et cetera. And then in 2014, Revolve officially acquired Alliance Apparel.
Oh, okay.
And then it basically became kind of like the private label or own brand division of Revolve. And so we now have like 25 brands under that umbrella. All those 3 brands still exist. Lovers and Friends, I think, is still one of like the top 5 selling brands on Revolve, which is always so cool to me.
Yeah.
But we have, Girlfriend Denim. We have a lot of brands like House of Harlow with Nicole Richie. We have one with Elsa Haas called Helsa. So it's now become this, kind of massive, again, 25 brands under the umbrella. So it's really cool to see that evolve as well.
So in the beginning, were you designing all of these brands, like the 4 that you mentioned?
I was helping, basically design, market it, and, dealing with sales, doing, et cetera. And then I had a partner that helped also with all the like logistics and production and manufacturing, et cetera, shipping. And when the acquisition happened in 2014, basically so the other owner and founder of Revolve is Mike. So Michael and Mike, basically were like, hey, you're a good designer, but I think we think you're a better marketer. And you're doing a lot of this, kind of, out of the box. Again, at that time, this is when like Instagram just launched. And like the concept of bloggers and influencers really was still pretty fresh and new. They were like, you were doing that with like Lovers and Friends and NBD and all these brands. Do you want to try it for Revolve? And so it was kind of, again, another new, opportunity that I was even more afraid to take because, again, I didn't go to like marketing school. I didn't go to business school. I didn't go to fashion design school or anything, but it felt like more, it just felt so much bigger because it was for Revolve and they had never done anything kind of in the brand marketing space. And so, I kind of just I said yes, but with a lot of hesitation because I didn't know if I was going to do a good job. And yeah, and anytime you're unsure, of course, of yourself, I think that is always very tough to kind of think about the task at hand. So
definitely.
So yeah, but I did say yes. And, it all kind of turned out, I guess, how it's supposed to.
How did you work through that self-doubt? I think that's really hard to.
It's so hard. I mean, I think it was, to be honest, it's a lot of encouraging from people that I trust. Mm-hmm. I still have, as all of us do, right? Always like, can I do this? Mm-hmm. Am I good enough to do this? Am I built for this? What's going to happen if I, don't do a good job? But I remember at the time thinking like, okay, if Mike and Michael and, all these other people think I can do it, at the very minimum, like just try, and then you can kind of see where it goes. And so I think it's also very important to have a group of people, whether it's people you work with, of course, or like your family or your friends, to be able to truly support you in something when, sometimes you don't have kind of the foresight to feel like you can do it.
Yeah.
The support system is so, so, so important. And people who are genuinely looking out for your best interests. I've relied on these people time and time again through my entire career. I mean, really like my life, but in terms of my career, because there are so many times when you're like, this is really hard, or like, I don't even know, like, if I can do this. Like, does this even make sense? Is this going to work? What are people going to think?
Yeah.
It's constant, but I think again, sometimes, having people that can help get you across that self-doubt is so important.
Yeah, definitely. So we touched on it a little bit when you were talking about your travels, but how did you come up with influencer marketing?
It's a big question.
Oh, really?
I didn't even really know it was like, okay, this is what it is, and I'm coming up with influencer marketing or anything like that. It was more just like happened so organically. It was just like, okay, there's, these bloggers that are using a whole another platform. First, it was like, of course, like MySpace, and then it was like their blog. And then now there's this whole new platform called Instagram. And so it was like, okay, how can I work with them to, again, have them feel excited about the product, wear it like how I would wear it if I was going to travel, and then just basically post it on their social. Because when you're naturally excited about doing something, like you have a tendency to share. Like I always think about like if we would go on like family vacations, like anyone, right? Like your mom, or even like Christmas pictures or holiday pictures, right? Like she'd always make sure like everybody was dressed like so nicely, and then take the photo and then print it and then like put it up in your hallway, or like in the living room, and like frame it. And so I kind of just thought about like that sequence of like of events where it was like, you want to dress nicely, you're having fun, you want to tell people you're having fun, and you basically do it through photos, And so I pitched a concept to Mike and Michael, like in, I would say like 2012, 2013. And I'd been talking about it forever. Like, I think that we should be traveling, and like people are just going to like post about it or whatever. And finally they were so tired of hearing it that they were just like, just do it already. Like, there's like the tiniest budget ever, and like try it out. And so the first trip we ever took, I just took like 2 influencers with me. I mean, we didn't even call them influencers back there. We were just like calling them like fashion bloggers. And we went to Sedona, Arizona for the weekend.
Oh,
yeah, it was so crazy. And then it just like, it was instantaneous in terms of like, oh, people are now, we got more followers like on Instagram, oh my gosh, like we sold out of this dress. Like it was, yeah. And so we're like, we should just do this a little bit more. And then it kind of just, freaking went crazy from there. But like, it was more just like, I didn't really know what was going to happen. It was more just like, this makes sense to me. Like, again, you want to travel, you want to like live your life. Like that's like the energy that the brand should be, giving and inspiring to people who shop on Revolve. And I think like that still holds very true today. Like when you think, I hope, like when you think about Revolve, you think about like, okay, I want to get like something cute for X because it's my friend's. Yeah. I'm going on vacation. I'm going to my friend's wedding. I'm going to a bachelorette party. I'm going on a date. I'm going on a girls' night. Like all of those things are positive experiences where you want to live your best life and look your best. And that was always kind of the inspiration for everything that we wanted to do, because no matter if you're traveling or not, no matter if it's on Instagram or it changes, because it will. Now we have TikTok and now it's going to be something else in 2-3 years. That essence of having fun and living your life will never go out of style. I don't care what anyone says. Like, I don't care if it's like literally 50 years from now. It's like, you still want to have fun.
Right.
You can't hate on fun. Like you have to just like, and like being your best self,
Yeah.
And so that was always what I hoped for the brand. And so when I look back now, like even when I speak to you or, when I think through it, it's like, it makes me so happy because I think that that's what people think about Revolve. And like, that is exactly what it should be. I hope Revolve that way too.
Yeah, no, like all of my friends and I, whenever we have a bachelorette trip or like literally everything that you've named, we've all gone on Revolve and like shared different things that we were looking at. And that's wild that was the intention. And that's literally what it became.
Yeah. I mean, it was like, let's just have fun. I mean, obviously in the beginning it was like, let's just have fun and see how this goes. And again, like, I always equated, I think because of like my experience in studying abroad and being exposed to this whole different life and culture.
Yeah.
Like, like people literally in Europe have 1 month off in the summer. I'm like, what is this? Like, I've never heard of this before in my life. I was like, and people like in my school, like the where I studied abroad, they would start talking about like, oh, like where they were going to go to holiday with their family. I was just cool. I was like, what is this life? And so like, even from the beginning, even going to Sedona, I was like, what's like a place that's like great for a photo and just a backdrop, and like what would be like a fun place to go to. It was always like that word of like fun, but also like aspirational. And so, yeah, it's, I guess again, it all kind of just worked out.
Yeah. How many trips have there been since?
Oh my gosh, Chelsea, like hundreds.
Whoa.
Sure. Like maybe not hundreds, like maybe like 100, definitely like at least 150 to 200.
Wow. Have you been on the majority of them?
For sure.
Wow.
Yes.
That's so cool.
Yeah. I probably have gone to like 80%, I would say like 80% of them, if not a little bit more. But it's, it is still like such an incredible time to be part of the company. I mean, I've been there now for, it's going to be 10 years.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. If not like 10 years, maybe now. Because I think the acquisition, happened, like officially happened like in the beginning of the year in 2014. So I know it's so cool that I just realized that. But
what was your favorite trip that you've been on for Revolve Around the World?
Oh my gosh, there's like so many. Because all of them also like it's different. It's like different with the girls that are also on there.
Right.
But, there's so many places that I had never been before with Revolve. And so that's why in a way, again, it's all kind of a little bit like more special to me. But I think at the beginning, or like, I would say in like, even Revolve in the Hamptons was like such a vibe. That was like in 2015, which is like so crazy. Like it feels so far away, which is, 2015, 16, 17, we did Hamptons in the summer and we would be there for almost 2 months and we would just live there. So it was like very cool. Yeah. But it's been such an incredible adventure. And to be able to like really, again, do this for work, it's
unreal.
It's unreal. I'm like, I don't even know. Sometimes I'm like, I can't believe I get paid to do this. Like, this is crazy. I mean, obviously traveling is just like a tiny part of what I do for work, but
right.
I'm still very like, this is like, I had never dreamt this or thought about this in high school or college or anything. And so everything feels still very like, special to me.
Oh, I love that. You've designed so many other creative marketing campaigns. There's been Revolve Festival at Coachella, Revolve Gallery, and then there's also a runway show at New York Fashion Week.
Right.
How do you come up with these ideas? And can you kind of just touch a little bit on what these are?
Yeah. And I mean, I guess it's, similar to what we were saying for Revolve around the world. It's always trying to think about the customer first and what will inspire the customer? What will she find, exciting and cool and something that, she would want to do with her friends. Right. So I think that's always like the one. And then two is, trying to figure out, of course, like product, like how do we integrate? Because at the end of the day, like, again, all these are really great, but we have to like be able to sell product ultimately. Right.
Yeah.
So it's like trying to think about, how does all the product integrate into all of these things that we're trying to do and make it feel like us and not like super like off brand? And again, would the customer be excited to see us at this place wearing this? Right. And so the customer always comes first, and trying to figure out again, what it makes sense from, like a culturally relevant perspective. Like that's why Coachella is one that's like, it's been around for so many years. It's also very close in terms of proximity to LA versus like us having to travel to, a whole other kind of country for a festival. It's kind of like in our backyard in a way. And something that, I was always familiar with growing up. Like, Coachella is this like festival that you go to once like you can afford to go there.
Yeah.
And so again, it all kind of just comes back to, what the customer we think would want to do with her boyfriend or with her friends, etc. And then figuring out how product, of course, makes all of that, come together.
Right. That makes so much sense. I never it's done so well. I don't think that it's like about selling product. Like I'm more like looking at that, like, wow, this is such a cool experience that they're doing.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Well, I mean, we of course never want to be like, buy this, it's
right.
It's just always like, okay, hey, like you're in the desert. This is what you would be wearing. And so that hopefully, and we do it enough so that again, when you're going to Palm Springs with your friends, whether it's for Coachella or like a bachelorette party, you're like, okay, you know what? Like I want to go to Revolve because subconsciously you just know that like we've been there. And same thing if you're going to like, Italy for whatever, your summer vacation or Vegas for the weekend or something like that. That again, Revolve like has like all the stuff to make sure that you have everything you need for the weekend. And so it's always like this balance again of like inspiring the customer, but making sure that we really are present where we think she wants to be.
Yeah. In 2020, you helped launch the Diversity and Inclusion Committee, and you also introduced the Revolve Mentorship Program. Can you share what these are?
Yeah. And so, as we continue to obviously evolve as a brand and, make sure that we are, inclusive, of course, but also, again, listening to our customer and what is she looking for? What is he looking for, et cetera. It was really clear to us that showcasing a diverse group of designers and highlighting the different designers that we have on the website was important. And so, we launched it, I think in February, to match with, Black History Month and, kind of figured out which designers were Black owned, Black designers, et cetera. And then with that, obviously, again, making sure that it was prominent on the site. It still is. Of course, you can search the website that way, but simultaneously providing a program so that we can, help not just like Black owned and Black designers, but really our, designers of color to, whether it's questions around production, around finance or marketing or what's the best way to, raise money, et cetera. I mean, there's just a plethora of kind of questions. And as a designer myself who, didn't really have any of the background to make it happen. And obviously I failed at it in the sense that like, I didn't know how to raise money. I didn't know how to like make my production cheaper, et cetera. And looking around the team at Revolve, like there's so many incredibly smart, but also just people that could provide value to others, that are not, doing it already because they're just like head down working. It's trying to figure out how to include them. And so that's been super cool to see, not just, of course, us supporting a more diverse group of designers, but also getting the whole company involved in terms of sharing what their knowledge and what they know, and being really helpful in that capacity.
Wow. And then you also started, there's also sustainability initiatives. I read that you donate some of the clothes. Is that right?
Yeah, we're constantly, because there's always there's always something, whether it's something in the most positive way, of course, of like, and we have to. I feel like there's just so much that we can do as a company, as a platform. So there's always something that we're trying to accomplish to give back in some way. So that's always, of course, very important to the entire company and not just myself.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So in 2020 as well, you also were on The Bachelor. I was so excited to see you. And you had I've been watching this show since I was a teen. You had the best prize. I was so jealous of it. What was it? It was like a $500 gift card to Revolve or something.
I can't even remember. Oh my God, Chelsea, I'm dying that you No, it was okay. They were like, okay, hey, we're going to sponsor The Bachelor. Like, you have to be on the show. And I'm like, what? I'm like, oh no, I don't like, it was just like this funny.
Did you watch the show? Like, did you know?
To be honest, I had only watched it like 2 or 3. No, basically my answer is no, which I think was probably better because I just didn't, I was like, okay, let's just like get in here and like, okay, I'm going to like talk to The Bachelor, talk to the girls, like, okay, it's fine. Versus I think if I was like super, by the way, there's like millions of people like you, like people on my team were just dying over The Bachelor.
No way.
Yeah, like people love The Bachelor. I mean, but it was such a fun experience. And, it was that show is just, I mean, it's literally lasted and test of time situation. So
yeah,
so I'm happy that I got to participate, but just Revolve in general was able to be a part of it.
Yeah. And you looked amazing as well.
Oh, thank you so much.
Of course.
Thank you.
So what can listeners expect next from Revolve?
I think what we can, what everyone can expect is, just trying to, make sure that the brand is always kind of ahead of what, whether it's, of course, a new brand, places a customer wants to go to, different, festivals, locations, et cetera. And also offering her, and letting her know that there's, a place like Revolve, not just for all the things that we talked about, like, parties and going out and bachelorette parties and vacations, but different categories. Like beauty is one that's growing for us so much.
Wow.
And also just like other, workout wear, things that to wear into the office. Of course, swim is like a big category. And also men's, like we're going, investing a lot of time and energy in both like beauty and men's. And so really capturing the audience in a different way. And I should say the customer in a different way, and having her think about us as much as possible for everything that's in her closet. And so that's, I think what's exciting, but it's also a big challenge because it does, it does challenge me and my team to think about how do we engage with her and excite her, when we have to talk about going to work, what I mean?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Going and traveling to like, the Bahamas and the south of France, is now, it's like we do it all the time, but it's like, how do you talk about, a basic t-shirt or your favorite denim or like beauty, et cetera. And so that's really something that I'm super focused on and something that I think we're going to continue to work on.
Exciting.
Yes.
We're coming to the end of our time, but before I let you go, I have 3 final questions for you. We call them thoughtful 3, and they're kind of just reflective of your journey.
Perfect.
So what moments in your career have had the most significant impact on who you are today?
I would say one of them would be, there's a few, but one of them would be going out of business from Bridget Catisse.
Oh, wow.
It allowed me to enter into a whole new partnership. And, then that evolved to like me being part of Revolve. It also taught me so much about, how to run a business and how it is to be a designer. And I think all of those things, again, full circle, even being on the marketing side, we deal with so many different designers and brands. So really understanding what they're going through. I would say another one is helping, or going public, going on the road with our CEOs and our CFO and really, pitching. And it was like, it was so hard to do. And I know we talked about this a little bit during this interview, but like I had so much self-doubt because I just was like, okay, I didn't go to like Harvard Business School. Literally, like I'm not Al. Like I didn't. Like, oh no. And I just was like feeling so intimidated to be in front of these like investors and finance guys, that I just was like so worried. But ultimately, through that journey, I realized that like there's some things that really only I'm good at, and I need to like understand that and feel proud of that versus focusing on all these things that I'm not good at, and vice versa. Like these guys and these investors don't understand what I do, and it's my job to really explain it to them instead of feeling really intimidated. I think a lot of times as again, women, as people who didn't go to business school, et cetera, we underestimate kind of, what we know and our value. So that was like a massive lesson for me, is that, you're good at what you do and you don't have to focus on all the things that, you don't do well.
So true. Thank you for sharing that. So then also, what characteristics do you feel helped you succeed?
I think, again, full circle, I think being an immigrant and having the mentality of like, this is such an opportunistic place. The Philippines, it's like you have very limited opportunities and even resources. And, my family, we don't come from a lot of money, et cetera. And so, obviously that's why we moved to America. But I think just having that mentality of like, you can do so much, if not anything you want in this country, has played such a massive role in my career, because it allows me to not only roll up my sleeves to do the job and work really hard, but it also broadens kind of my perspective of like, you could literally be anything. Like there's nowhere else in this entire world where you could do anything. You can start a business on your own. You could, of course, there's a lot of like still barriers, but generally, you can kind of like, if you work really hard, of course, and like a lot of, and with luck, et cetera, you can really make something of yourself. And so that's always been, I think one of the best things about moving here and just having that mentality has been super, super, impactful.
Yeah. And then finally, what is the best advice that you've received in your career that you still follow today?
Okay. So one of the best advice that I've ever received, I mean, I've received so many, but I would say one of the best ones that I still think about and follow is that you don't have to be good at everything. And you don't have to know everything. I think when I was younger, I felt like, again, I had to know everything to be smart. I had to know everything to feel like I was valuable. But it's the complete opposite now. Like now, the less I know, it's the more opportunities for me to learn. And so that's been really powerful because I'm able to ask questions. I don't really have an ego about like, if I don't understand something, I'm like, I want to ask so I can like learn, versus before. Again, I was so self-conscious that if I asked something, it would look like I wasn't smart or I didn't know something. And so that's completely changed my mentality, and it's allowed me to be super open and allowed me to just, again, ask questions and not feel like someone is going to judge me. And then I would say the other thing that's kind of similar to that too is to, you know, because we don't know everything, it's okay to also like have someone else, whether it's your business partner, whether it's your coworker, whether it's if you're building a team, to lean on them because they're great at whatever that is, you know, instead of trying to take it all on yourself.
Well, yeah, perfect. Well, thank you so much for being here today, Raissa. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Oh my gosh, I'm so grateful. That was so much fun. And again, thank you so much for being so prepared. Such great questions. And I'm so happy that you and your friends, you know, shop at Revolve and associate us with all the fun things that you want to do in your life.
Yeah, thank you for providing it.
Thanks, Chelsea.
Of course. Bye.
Bye.